have special co-hosts Kyle Thompson and Anthony Gaona. Today we have special returning guest, Mr. Steve Trang. If you don't know who that is, go Google him. He's done other episodes with us too, but we're excited to have him back. Today we're going to talk about sales and sales psychology and some good stuff here, but thanks for coming back, Steve.
No, thanks for having me back on. I'm excited. I mean, you guys were just on the show a few weeks ago or a couple months ago, and you guys crushed it. So I'm glad to return the honor.
Dude, I think what I would like to say is that I think your sales training is probably the most sophisticated that I've ever seen, at least in real estate and probably even to a larger audience than that. So I'm excited to dig in today, man, and talk about some of this stuff with you. It's always great to hear it.
Yeah, definitely. Look forward. Whatever helps the audience, I'm all about it.
Yeah, I think this is something that we don't really pay attention to, right? We take it for granted as we're out there, like getting leads, talking to sellers, talking to buyers, that kind of stuff, raising capital. And you take it for granted, right? That you have to have some kind of mechanics behind you to actually be able to get these deals to the closing table. And then you see there's those superstars out there, like, you know, yourself, some that I could think of right away is Naaman and Stratton and those guys, like, and they're pretty heavy on their sales psychology and all that stuff. And it's very important. I think a lot of real estate investors overlook it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of two things, right? Like, it seems like with salespeople, they kind of fit into one or two buckets. One is like they feel like they're good, so they don't need it, right? Which is sadly not true, right? Mm-hmm. Or you got other people that are like, well, that's like you have to have the gift of gab, so it's not for me, right? I'd rather have someone else do it. And so, unfortunately, in both instances, those people are wrong, right? Like there's something that can be added, something that can be learned, but yeah, we had the opportunity to work with a lot of like amazing people. You know, we had amazing guys like on our podcast, like you guys, and the best operators in the country invest in their sales team, not just in themselves. They invest in their sales team, right? They spend money to get their sales guys better. So, you know, but it's up to everyone, right? If they want to invest in sales or not.
So I think I have a leading question with this. So a lot of people are afraid to invest in their sales team because they're afraid they're going to leave them. Mm-hmm. Because I think everybody has their cycle of how long they stay with their company. How do you kind of teach or get people to stick around for longer? Because you know everybody has their life cycle. Even us in the business, we're gonna have some type of exit in the future, us as operators. But what's that?
Well, like? I look back to Jim Rohn, right, who was an inspiration for Darren Hardy, for Tony Robbins, right? Tony Robbins interned for him, right? And so what he said was like, you know, the greatest fear is like, well, what if I invest in them and they leave? To which he says, like, what if you don't invest in them and they stay, right? Like, if your guys are closing 10%, right? Yeah, you can invest in them and they leave, but man, how much money are you losing every day that they're not killers? Every day that they're every day that your sales team stays mediocre, how much money is that costing you? So I don't look at it as like, what if they leave? There's a different part we'll talk about later on, but like, it's your responsibility, I believe, to train your guys up to create a culture where people want to get better, so that they want to make a lot of money. You can help them make a lot of money, because if everyone in your company is making a lot of money, guess what? You're making a lot of money, right? So I think that you gotta be willing to invest in your team. And the other part too is if you're training them and they leave, I think that's a reflection of your company culture. It's a reflection of your vision and your mission and your commitment to the team. I'm not saying that we don't have people leave. I've had people leave, right? It happens. I would argue that our churn is lower because we care about our team and we invest in our team, right? And if you're good, if you're real good, it's gonna be hard for them to leave and compete against you. So you just gotta create an environment where people thrive and are accomplishing all of their goals working at your company.
Dude, that's a badass distinction. Like, what if you don't train them and then they stay? Damn, that's crazy. And I was thinking about that before we hopped on. You know, you almost can't afford not to hire, you know, and train your salespeople to get them to the next level, because you're losing more money than you would have spent on the sales training anyway.
It's a leaky bucket. It's a leaky bucket, right? Every lead that comes in, like, you're losing, I don't know, let's just say 1 in 5, 1 in 10, 1 in 20. Either way, you're losing those leads. Those leads are going right out the door, and they're going to Daniel, and Daniel's closing them, right? So that's what happens. That's what happens.
somebody they do have their sales team trained up, and bam, they close that same sale that somebody else from the other, company said, oh, that the lady wasn't ready to sell yet, but they didn't have the training in place to get them across the finish line.
Exactly. I mean, you look at the dating scene, right? It's kind of like, this girl that you were trying to chase and you didn't have the resources, right? The knowledge to the game, right? And they go to Daniel, aka Mr. Steal Your Girl, right? Like, that's what's happening.
Yeah. Yep. Some other closer comes along.
Steve, what's like your operation when you're first introducing someone new to your team on the sales side? What's like the operation to get them started? What do you provide them for them to want to stay with you for a long period of time?
I think the first thing is they got to be committed to the vision and the mission. I think that's the first thing, right? Like, what is the company trying to do? And then the second thing, you got to make sure it's a culture fit. Like, if you're bringing in, like, I'll give you an example. We don't hire extreme mavericks anymore, right? And that maverick is a predictive index, right? But like, they're so independent, we don't even want to bring them in because they're not going to be a team player, right? Mm-hmm. So they have to want to win, but they also have to be okay to be part of a team, right? And that goes back to culture fit. And so they have to be bought into the mission. They have to be bought into the vision. They have to be bought into the culture, which are core values. And then after that, we want to see that we want to give them the skills, right? This is the training we offer, right? We want to give them the onboarding, show them like how to do their job. And after that, we look at some principles where I used to fail as a leader is I would just say, all right, Kyle, here's what you need to do. And it was up to you to just execute, right? Now, our standard is I got to teach Kyle what to do. I got to test that he understood it. I got to make sure he understands why it is that way. Like, why is it important to do that way? So not just what, but why is it important? And the last thing, I got to get you to commit to excellence. Like, I'm going to do it this way every single time. And after we commit to doing it that way every time, we're also going to get you to commit to excellence, which includes training, right? So what I used to do is like, all right, Kyle, and here, I know other teams do this, right? Like, here's my login to the John Martinez program. Go log in, go watch the modules, and now you're going to start getting leads next week, right? That doesn't work. So you got to know what to say. You have to know why it's important to say it that way. You got to commit to saying it that way. You got to commit to the training so that you can hit your goals, right? Your higher purpose, whether it's to retire your spouse, put your kids in a good school, travel more, take care of your mom, whatever it is, so that you can do those other things, right? So like that all goes together for making Kyle want to stay on my sales team.
Right. Absolutely. I love that. So you're also instilling, so would you say that you're using tactics and psychological things to help almost like close your closers?
100%. So the tactics we use, right? As far as like, I'm talking to Anthony, I want to buy Anthony's house. Hey, tell me what's going on. How did this happen? How long's it been going on? What have you tried to do about it? When's the last time, something, one of these things occurred? What happens if we can't help you? Who else knows about it? Like all those questions, same exact questions with your sales team, right? Hey, right. Anthony, I appreciate you wanting to work here. I'm curious, why here? What are you trying to do? Let's pretend we work together and it's successful. What does that look like? How much money are you making? What are your goals? What's the progress look like? How can I help you do that? Can I hold you accountable to it? Right? Like these are all conversations to lead a sales organization. And it's no different than raising your kids, right? Like we got to keep everyone committed to the bigger vision because that's what helps us commit to the daily grind. If we don't have a clear vision of where we're going, then why would we get out of bed? What are we grinding for?
Right. Absolutely. Love it.
Dude, I like that. You're going to use those same, I hate to use the word tactics, but I don't know if there's a better English word for it, but you use those same principles on your people to make sure that you're actually really going to be a fit for each other. Because the same way you don't want to close every single sale, you probably don't want to close every single person. Like you said, like you don't need a maverick. Like you don't need somebody who's just so full of themselves. They're not going to be conducive to the culture.
Yeah, we had a guy, right, who was a great salesperson in his own right? Like allegedly, in the pre-screen, right? He's like, yeah, I'm making $150K a year. It's like, great, awesome. Like, why do you want to work here? Right. And the guy's like, well, I'm tired of, cold calling all day and like having to sell all day, every day. It's like, okay. Right. Because he had to source his own business and then work it. Right. And in the interview, he was like coaching my guy on how to be a better interviewer. Right. And it was like, okay, this guy's not going to that culture fit.
Oh, damn. All right. I see where this is headed.
Yeah. Right. Like, look, you'd be great for a small team that doesn't have like coaching, but like in an organization where we have, what's the word I'm looking for, where we're all pretty clear on what we want to accomplish, right? Where you have to like actually put notes in your CRM, where you actually have to follow up consistently, where you're okay with being called out for not putting your notes in or not doing the follow-ups. That guy's not going to make it. He's going to lose his mind.
Right.
Yeah. You're going to get a lot of pushback from that person right away.
Yeah. Like it's every day. It's like, Anthony, why don't you put the notes in? It's like, because I already know. Like, okay.
I already know what I'm doing.
Yeah. It's like, okay, well, that's not going to help. Like if you have to talk to this guy in 4 months and ask him how it's going with, his foreclosure situation or his divorce, whatever, like that's not in the CRM. How are you going to follow up with him in 4 months?
At least I know I can't hire Anthony or I can't hire myself. Like, this is bad.
Potentially. Very much so. Right. But we're not trying to hire people like us.
Exactly. No.
Right. If we're the reason why we work for ourselves is because we can't work for anybody else.
That's good. That's funny. One thing I liked about your program, because I participated in your program, is that you have a sales script. Can you talk about like the methodology of your sales script? Because I think you kind of mentioned it a little bit in the past 30 seconds, 2 minutes or so. But what does that methodology look where you kind of push sellers through, or even how you're hiring too? Because I think you have your process, and it comes out very naturally to you.
It does, because I've been doing it for so long, right? So we look at it, our process for at a high level, right? We set expectations beginning the appointment, how this appointment's going to go, right? And then we find all the reasons why we should do business together or not do business together, right? What's the pain? What's the gain? What's the motivation? What happens? What does success looks like? What happens if we can't do it for you? And then we eliminate all the potential objections, right? So price, time frame, other decision makers. And after we do all those things, we negotiate all that. And then we get a commitment. Hey, if we can if we can pay your price, if we can do this today, like, what happens next? And they say, oh, I want you to, let's put it all in writing. Okay, great. And the last thing we do after we sign a contract is we prevent remorse, right? So that's our process, which is borrowed very, very generously from another significantly well-known training program. I just can't cite it anymore because they sent me a cease and desist notice, right? So that's our process that we follow as prescribed by other trainers, right? And that's the same process if I'm going to have a difficult conversation. Hey, Daniel, step into my office. We need to chat real quick. Hey, when we spoke before, you were saying that you weren't hitting your numbers and you weren't making progress towards your goal. You said you gave me permission to hold you accountable. Okay, great. So let's have a conversation. How do you think you're doing? What are you seeing? Here's what I'm seeing. What are we going to do about that? If you're not making progress on that, what should we do? Right. And it's that same thing about like setting expectations, talk about the pain, talk about the gain, what success looks like, so on. Right. And then if this doesn't work, how should I get back? What should we do next time? That's the preventing remorse. It's the same framework. And then if you look at like the old school, I put something together. The old school traditional sales process, right, is you build phony rapport, right, and then you push your company or yourself, you promote features and benefits, you do some trial closes, you handle objections, and then you do the hard close, and you handle more objections, and then maybe you get the deal, maybe you never talk to them again. Versus our process, like, hey, let's build professional trust. Let's figure out what's going on in your world. Let's figure out what the perfect outcome looks like for you. And at the end, help you buy that perfect outcome. That's our sales process, right? And that applies, again, buying someone's house, recruiting somebody, leadership conversations with your kids.
It's just everything's sales, everything's negotiation. So you're like painting a picture for everyone and explaining that you're just telling stories. Like painting pictures.
Telling stories, lots and lots of stories. 100%.
I love that. Yeah, that's what I love. I love the story closing. The stories is one of the best closes. It's just so notorious. It works. It works so well.
Yeah. You know why it works?
I think it's like more of a relation thing because they can relate to it. You tell them a story, they start to paint that picture in their mind. They're like, you know what? That makes sense. I could see myself doing the same thing. And then they start to go down the rabbit hole in their mind. And then it's just like a giant, like, the dopamine receptor is like, damn, imagine myself in that situation. Imagine me getting that 150K cash for my house or whatever it might be. So it's just a psychological rabbit hole that they go down when you're telling a story.
Yeah, but you nailed it, right? They can see it, and that kind of goes back to, and like, I don't know how much people care about this, right? But you look at like physiologically how we communicate. Like, you got to remember, for most of history, we were all illiterate, right? For most of history, we couldn't read or write. Right. So then, how do we pass these stories, right? How do we pass these stories with like the Bible, with Gilgamesh, with Odysseus, right? We all read the Odyssey in high school. A lot of us had to read the Odyssey in high school, right?
Yeah.
That was passed along from Greek mythology. These people couldn't read or write. How did we pass all the knowledge and information, the morals and the fables and this and that? By telling stories. All right. The Bible is just another story. I'm not disregarding the religion. Right? I'm just saying, like, that's how they communicate, right? It wasn't until King James whoever like made like this like consolidated version. Like, this is like the official version or one of the official versions. And before then, right, people couldn't read or write.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So how do you tell your compelling story? Is it fact or fiction, or is it a combination of both?
So if you have the truth, use the truth, right? But my coach, I've heard two different versions of this. So my coach said, never let the facts get in the way of a good story. Right? And then I had another mentor who said, like, just because it's not true, just because it's not true doesn't mean it's not real to me.
Yeah.
Right. So do we exaggerate? Sure. And I know, like, some people it's a turnoff, right? Like, why would you be not completely transparent with the other person, right? And look, perfect world, like, integrity is one of my core values. Perfect world, I could be 100% transparent with you, right? Perfect world. That's not how it works. Like, I wish I could just walk into Daniel's living room. Daniel, how much do you want for your house? Great, I can pay it. And close them in 15 seconds. I wish that's how the world worked. That's how I would like to work. It's not how it works, right? We got to do the dance. Hey, tell me what's going on. Hey, before our time together is over, if I can give you a price that makes sense for you and I can answer your questions, will you feel comfortable working with me? If we can't, if you feel good telling me no, great, right? Hey, tell me where it hurts. How long has it been hurting? We got to do the whole dance, right? And then I got to do, like, hey, how much are you hoping to walk away with? Wow, that's a lot. We could do that. What happens next? Right? Well, I mean, what you're asking for, that doesn't make sense. Cash buyers and your buyer paying between X and Y. Right? And you're like, what if someone offered you that? And then we go through, like, well, you got some other people that aren't here. Okay, what are we going to tell them? Man, well, the price you asked me for, I don't know if I can pay it. It's more than I was allowed to pay. How about this? Go talk to them. See if that works for them. If you tell me it works for them, I'll go fight with my boss, see if I can get this done for you. Like, we got to do the whole dance. Otherwise, Daniel doesn't feel good, right? So we got to do the dance, because the other way, what's the alternative, right? Daniel walks into a dealership, said, hey, I want to buy this. What have I seen recently? I want to buy the Cybertruck. It's all over social media. It looks great. But I want you guys to know I'm not paying $1 more than $90,000 for it. And the guy's like, done. Like, did you bring a checkbook? Like, how are we going to do this? What's Daniel's mind going through?
Yeah.
I paid too much. I overpaid, right? Because we didn't do the dance.
Take it quick.
Yeah.
Too quick to a decision.
So we got to do the story. We got to do the not showing all their cards. Part of the human experience.
I think too, Steve, like, using the training and the frameworks that you have, it's the best possible framework that you can have. It reminds me very much of the sales process that I've learned in timeshare. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of reasons behind every single step. And if you leave one out, you kind of blow the sale.
It breaks.
If you put every single step in at the very end of the conversation, they almost have to close. They almost have to say yes if you do it correctly.
Yeah. It's one of the things I learned from a different program was a signed contract is just a natural conclusion to a well-run appointment.
Boom.
Right.
Yep.
Like I have two, like, so I heard from Alex Hormozy, right? It's their job to say no. It's their job to say no, because it was their job to say yes. What the hell do I need salespeople for? Right. It's their job to say no. Right. But at the same time, I believe every homeowner that's motivated or landowner for you guys or whatever, private money lender, they want to say yes. But we, the salespeople, screw it up. We insert doubt. We insert uncertainty. We come across as not listening. We come across as pushy, right? We screw up the sale because we're saying things that are getting them in the way of them saying yes.
Dude, I love that, man. So let me, here's one example that we see very often, and I'm sure you've seen this a million times too, is where this one person keeps on running to this same objection. The same person keeps getting the exact same one objection that I never get.
Mm-hmm. What's the objection?
Their belief system. They just think like, oh, nobody has money, or they're thinking just this one thing, and they keep running into it until they can move beyond that for themselves.
And you know why that objection is so hard for them to overcome?
Why is that?
You said it. It's their belief system. They believe it.
Yeah, it's from inside of them.
Mm-hmm.
They plant that seed of doubt, and then people, they see it and they call it out. So it's always there.
Yeah, well, if you look at, like, for example, myself, right, the first 10 years of my career, I was actually a pretty bad salesperson, right? The only reason why I got sales, well, there's a couple of reasons. I got sales because I was trustworthy. I came across as competent. I came across as caring, right? That's the reason why I got sales. But I was a crappy salesperson. And the one I could never overcome for the longest time was I need to think about it. And why I couldn't overcome it? Because that's the one I would use. And because that's the one I would use, it's hard for me to overcome. Just like if you got a guy who's like, his wife makes all the decision, right? As a salesperson, his wife makes all the decisions, and he comes into, I need to think about it. He's just going to accept it, right? He's not going to be able to overcome it because that's his life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you mean. Yeah.
The objections is the hardest for you to overcome are the ones that you believe in yourself.
Oh, dang. Okay. I never thought about it that way, but that's very true. Yeah. So like if I know I'm going to have to think about it because I need to talk to my wife anyway.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve, so how does your training work, man? How is it set up? So do you highlight particular objections like that, and then the lead up towards crushing that objection before you ever get there?
So our training, it breaks down to two different parts. One, we go over the principles of sales, which we cycle through about every 3 or 4 months. And the reason why we cycle through every 3 or 4 months is because we need to stay sharp, right? We need to remember the important stuff, because like when we don't recycle it, then people get sloppy, they forget, and they don't use it, and then it starts breaking, right? That's the first part. The other part of our training is overcoming objections. And we don't have a set list of objections. I'm going to create something because someone asked me last week to make it. And I'm going to create it, but here I'm creating it reluctantly. And here's why. I believe if you need a list of objections to overcome, like a list of objection handlers, if you need a list, that tells me that you're not good at sales. Because if you're good at sales, you wouldn't have these objections, right? So I'm actually creating it as a lead magnet to sell people more sales training. Okay. So it's because if you're good at sales, when you hear the objection, you can overcome it, because the way to overcome objection is to have the seller tell you how they would overcome the objection, right?
Can you give us an example of that?
So I'll give you an example. I'll do like a scenario here, right? So let's say you have a situation where, like, let's say you're buying a coaching product, right? And it's $10K. It's like, I've never spent $10K on it before, right? I say, it's interesting. Okay, so, and by the way, our program's not $10K. It's more expensive. So, but let's just say it's $10K, right? So you say, I've never spent more than $10,000 on anything before for personal development. Okay, hey, I understand that. You know, it's interesting. Daniel was in our program many years ago, and you can see the success he's had in the last few years, right? And he was really reluctant to sign up as well to buy our program, because like $10,000, that's a lot of money. But he did it anyway. Why do you think that is?
Ooh, I wanted to do better, you know?
Yeah, he wanted to create a better life for his wife. Yeah, I want to create a better life, you know, for his wife, for his kids. That's exactly what he said. So I don't know, but does that make sense for you? Like, does that line up with what you're trying to do? Right.
Yeah,
so now it's not about the 10,000. It's about like, oh, I want to live a better life. Right. Or the other one. Here's the classic one I use all the time, and people laugh at it, but actually I've kind of made this joke like, hey, Daniel, it sounds like $30,000 more important than your grandkids. Right? I've made this joke like forever. Right. And I'll share with you how we say it softly. But then it actually came up in an appointment where literally it was $30,000. Like, we were $30,000 apart. And I basically said, like, so here's the way I would say it. Hey, Anthony, right now, it sounds like what's really keeping us apart from working together today is you're looking to get an extra $30,000. I get it.
Yep.
A moment ago, you were saying it was really important to be there with your grandkids because, they were just born. And like every day that you're not with them, it just pains your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of sounds like right now you're saying getting $30,000 is more important than being with your grandkids right now.
Well, no.
And I'm not. No, my grandkids are more important than money. No, like freaking outside right now, right? But like that was your objection, but there were your reasons, and now you have to sell yourself. I don't want to be with my grandkids, or I want $30,000 more. That's not like a script, right? That was like me listening to you. You said you want 30,000 more. You said you want to be with your grandkids right now. Well, which is it, Anthony? And look, if you told me you want more money, who am I to judge? I would pick money too for my grandkids, right? Me personally, right? But that's not my choice. This is your choice. You gave me the words. You tell me which one makes more sense for you. But did I give you an objection handler, or did I ask you to make a decision between those two things you said were important to you?
I like that, man. You take the numbers out of it, so you're like helping them get out of that numerical part of their brain. Like, wait a minute, you're making this about the money. I thought you said the important thing was the grandkids. So it helps redirect away from that too.
Mm-hmm. It's a reframe of the conversation.
Beautiful.
I like a lot of sales is listening.
Yeah,
and you have to actively listen to what they're saying and what they're not saying, and then you bring it up in conversation, and that's all it is. Active listen. So one thing whenever I train like acquisitions to make offers, I was like, you always make your base offer, then you negotiate off of whatever their counter is, and that's it. Mm-hmm. You don't build and create other scenarios on top of it. You just counter when they counter not, because other things might be good. So you have to actively listen and figure out what their motivation is on their counter. And
it goes back to help them figure out what they want and sell them that.
Yeah. That's good. It's getting good. Kyle, I know you got another question. Go ahead.
No, I just this is so much juice. I just love listening. I just like how it's everything is about you're the salesperson in that situation. If you get a no, it's on you. If you get a yes, it's on you. So I just like that you frame it back to it's always you, and you have to kind of pick the client apart based on already what they're telling you everything that you need to close them on already. Like if you're sitting down with someone motivated, they're telling you everything you need to already. You just need to listen and not think about the 4 pillars and like all these different things. Like, yeah, great, those are important, but you have to ask them in a certain way, and you have to I just love it, man. You're killing the sales game.
Yeah, I appreciate it, right? And like, yeah, you have to say that delivery about like it sounds like money is more important in your family. Yeah, that has to be delivered very, 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 very softly, right? But like you were saying, like the mindset, like they want to say yes, and I'm screwing it up, right? So, if you met me 10 years ago and I didn't get the sale, I was like, yeah, it was unfortunate. I guess they didn't like me, like, and that was it. It was external, right? Like I didn't get the sale, but it wasn't because of me; it was because of them, right? So I want to say last year I went on an appointment, and I met with the homeowner, and I didn't get the contract, right? And I was pissed, and my wife's like, "What's wrong with you right now?" Because she knows this version of me. It's the same version of the guy that comes home playing basketball and just stinks up the gym, right? Like I screwed up, I didn't play well, right? She's like, "What's wrong with you right now?" I was like, well, now that I understand sales to the level that I do, if I don't get the sales because I failed, I want to close 100% of my appointments. So when I don't get the sales, like I know I missed something, and I'm trying to figure out what it was that I missed.
I think using a program like yours, Steve, is it makes you not miss. It's impossible to miss if you follow every single step all the way through. And so if you have let's say we have a lot of salespeople on our team, there's probably 40 of them now. You don't know where they're dropping the ball unless they're going through every single step. Then you can see where their whole process comes apart. But without it, you're shooting in the dark, and they can't get better. You can't help them get better because there's no framework.
There's no framework, right? So like and this is not, I didn't mean to plug this here, right? But since we're talking about this, right? So if you go to closemyself.com and you buy the book, it's $5.60. One of the free bonuses is a call review sheet, right? Which I created because one of our students, like, hey, can you give me a sheet like what you listen to on call reviews? Because they listen to me do call reviews and like, Steve, what are you listening for? I was like, oh, let me write down everything I'm listening for. And it's 3 pages, right, of everything I'm listening for in a call, right? And so like, did you say, did you step over your silence? Or did you have your pauses? Did you say right a lot? Did you say okay a lot when you're not supposed to? Did you ask yes, no questions when you should have been asking open-ended questions? So like I have 3 pages of these things. And basically what it does is it helps you figure out what you did wrong on a call review and what you did right. Okay. So like if once a week you went and listened to one call and you listened to like, here are the things I did well, here are the things I did poorly. And for the next week, you just focused on the things you did poorly and just work to improve that. Like how much better would you be in a year? And so, yeah, we have a call review scoring sheet on our website. It's one of the free bonuses if you spend the $5.60 for a book, which I basically feel like I'm giving so much away. But that's what my coaches have.
Why do you pick such a low price point, man? Just to like get it in as many people's hands as possible, or what?
Yeah, so I have a coach, right? I hired a coach, a little over 2 months ago. Mm-hmm. And like I've got my own ambitions, right? I'm trying to sell a company for $100 million. So I hire a coach. And so his philosophy is you need to get as many people into your world that are willing to spend a few dollars, because those are your best people that are going to spend more money later on. So we used to do the lead magnet things, like let's give all this stuff away and you build an email list, right? But a person that gives you their email address is very different than the person that's going to give you a few dollars to be in your world. So now I'm building a world full of people that are giving me a few dollars.
Yeah. We have $1 product we've been selling for probably like a year and a half. It's literally $1. I want you to pull out your card and pay me $1.
Yeah.
And then that's a person that you type that's willing to whip the card out on impulse.
Mm-hmm. It's a different person, right? A person that's willing to invest in themselves is very different than a looky-loos, right? Because here's what I've learned about myself. I suck at coaching people that have never done a deal before.
Yeah.
I don't have, I'm a flawed person. I don't have the patience to work with a person and hold their hand if they've never done a deal before, right? You tell me, hey, I locked up this deal and it's a dumpster fire. I will work with you to fix it. But you took action. I will coach you on how to clean it up. But the guy that's like, man, Steve, I made 10 phone calls today. I didn't get any contracts. Like, I can't do it. It causes me too much stress.
I can't help you if you can't help yourself.
Exactly. Right.
You know, I'm the same way, dude. So people ask us all the time, like, why don't you guys have scripts? I don't want them to memorize the script. I want you to get your butt on the phone and I want you to go to work. Right. So it's just, sink or swim type of thing. But I think for our sales team immediately, we need to implement your sales training right away, dude, because I do feel like that. I feel like there's some of them that they just stand way, way, way out and they're just going to crush it no matter what. But for all the other ones, they're like lost little puppies running into each other. Like we need to have some kind of framework for them to be able to just go and grind. And then we don't have to develop our own scripts.
And they have goals and they have ambitions. And wouldn't it be great if everyone that worked for you did really well in life? If everyone you worked for you had cash flowing properties, like how awesome is that, right?
Yeah.
Right. So we do that by investing in them.
So I have a controversial question. So us as natural salespeople, we get drawn into using our tactics on our family and friends.
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line on that? Because I was talking to a good friend of mine, and he said he used one of his sales tactics on his girlfriend, and it worked. And he didn't even mean to do it on purpose. So he said he felt bad because he felt like he manipulated her to the outcome without her coming to her own decision about it.
So I feel totally fine using all these tactics and techniques anywhere and everywhere.
Okay.
Right? And I used to not. So here's my journey. So I signed up for sales training in 2018, right? I signed up for the sales training. I'm using it. I'm using it on calls where I'm selling people programs. I'm using it, and my team is using it in living rooms buying people's houses, right? So we're using it anywhere and everywhere, but only for work and nowhere else, right? And then one day, I have a big blowout fight with the wife, right? And what happens? Well, I wasn't using the skills. I wasn't listening. I wasn't mirroring. I wasn't seeking to understand. I was just having a conversation, right? And so I have a blowout fight. I was like, what happened? Well, Steve screwed up because he assumed things because he didn't understand what she was trying to say, right? And so then I realized, like, oh, it's not just high stakes conversations in the living room or on the Zoom. It's also high stakes conversations with the spouse, right? And then I have an employee, a valued team member, blow up on me and quit, right? And then again, introspection and reflection. Well, why did they feel that way? Well, they didn't feel heard. They didn't feel validated as a team member, right? And we kept it, right? We were able to work through it. But I was not leading effectively. And so what was going on? I wasn't listening well. So then I learned, okay, so not only is it high stakes conversations when I'm selling coaching, when I'm buying houses, and when I'm talking to my spouse, it's also with every conversation with a team member. And so I understand the colleague you mentioned, he was concerned, like, when is it too far? I would say it all boils down to intention. Are you manipulating for your own personal gain, or are you influencing? Because if you're influencing for someone else's benefit, it's fine, right? So right now we're about to hit election season, right? It is just massive negative manipulation, and that's it. Both sides. There's no side that's like better or above it. They're all terrible, right? So it's just massive manipulation. But if, for example, you're buying someone's house, how many people have we tried to buy their house and they couldn't get out of their own way? And they screwed themselves. They made a horrific decision because no one could help them to understand the consequences of those poor decisions. In that case, I'm influencing them into a direction that actually benefits them and makes their life better. So, long answer to your question, it's intention is what it all boils down to.
Boom, man. I think that word right there kind of unlocks the whole thing for me, because in my mind and kind of the way I was taught, it's to never use this on your friends and family. But I like the way that you put that in there, is the intention behind it. Then I can use these tools and skills to drive you somewhere that's beneficial to you. And that's powerful, man.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's the most recent use I've used with my kids, right? So my kids are now, the oldest two are 11 and 13. So this was about a year ago or half a year ago. So maybe they're 11 and 12 at this point, right? So anytime they do something I don't approve of, I'm unhappy with, I'll just ask them, hey, what happened here? And they get to share with me what happened. And then I'll ask, okay, so what did we learn from this? And then I answer that. Okay. And how can we make sure this doesn't happen again? Those are all sales questions. They're open-ended questions.
Great questions.
Right? The only problem with using it on my kids is now they use it on me. Right?
They learn quickly.
I was late. We were late for school one day, and they asked me, what happened, Dad? I was like, I stayed on the basketball court a little too long. So, like, what happened? We're late. What caused us to be late? Well, I stuck around the basketball court just a little bit too long. How can we make sure this doesn't happen again? It's like, damn it.
I think kids learn this quicker than adults do, man.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But that's intention, right? I'm using it with the right intention with my kids. I'm not manipulating them.
Yeah.
I'm helping them get better. I'm influencing them to be better people.
And that's amazing. And then they're going to have those skills already ingrained before they even hit the business world. They're already going to be like born with that stuff.
Oh, they're using it. I feel bad every time they use it on my wife, right? It's like, I'll pull my wife aside every once. So I was like, hey, so here's what they did. Yeah.
Yeah. Kids, they don't have any filter too, so they're just so damn good at it.
Yeah.
I do a lot of this just so I record all these conversations for my kids because my kids are so young. They can't enjoy this, Mm-hmm. I hope they enjoy all this stuff in the future. So, hey there, future kids. These conversations are good. I think it's very important to have them. It helps you more well-rounded in your relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I think all these things help out in your own little way. That I think once you know your own flaws and you can address them, or somebody holds you accountable to address them,
Yeah,
it makes you a better parent. So I think
makes you a better parent, better communicator. And look, I want them to be able to communicate with me when they're going through something tough, right? So if we're not using the active listening skills, why would they come to us when they have something difficult that they're going through? Right. So like I do the labeling, I do the mirroring, I do the reversing, right? I ask them like, hey, like, perfect world, how do we get this? And they know what I'm doing. They get it. But they also know that I better understand their perspectives when I do this.
It's mutually beneficial.
Exactly.
That's beautiful, man. That's amazing.
Steve, do you have an exact turning point where you're like, dude, I just need to get better at sales? Like, do you have an exact remembrance of when you were, because you said you sucked at sales. Do you have an exact remembrance where you're like, this is my turning point?
Yeah, very early, very, very early. The problem was I didn't have a way to get better. So I got my license in 2007 and I made it not well, right? Just pure hustle and grit and the willingness to spend money on marketing dollars. I will spend as necessary to win. However, I always got stuck with, I need to think about it. Let me get back to you, right? Let me talk to so-and-so. And I would just take it and lose sales. And so I want to say it was around 2010, 2011, I was like, screw it. I'm just going to hire salespeople, right? And then they're going to work with buyers. I'll work with the sellers. And I want to say it's like around 2014 or 15. I was like, man, I'm just going to hire pushy salespeople for my appointments too. Right. And so that was my solution. And it wasn't until 2018 that I actually found a sales trainer that could actually help me. Right. And that's where I found my coach, who just happened to be Pace Morby's coach. Right. And so once I found that, I was like, oh, like this whole world opened up for me, because you can read the books on sales. There's a lot of books on sales. Right. But there's only a handful of them that are really good. Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike at a Seminar is a good one. Gap Selling, Never Split the Difference. These are three, like critical books. But those books haven't been around forever, right? And so like for most of my career, I struggled. And it wasn't until I hired a coach to help me understand reframing and tonality, which most sales books can't cover well, reframing and tonality.
So you mentioned the coach that coached you in Pace Morby. Who's that coach?
Can't say. Gas, cease and desist.
Oh, that's the same.
Yeah, it's wild, right? Like, I want to promote them because they were so instrumental to my journey. Matter of fact, I actually reached out to my old coach. It's like, hey, we're starting a new podcast. It's Close More Sales, right? And I wanted to invite him on, but he was like, I want nothing to do with you. I was like, okay, all right. Because in his mind, he's older, so it's kind of a scarcity mindset, right? In his mind, like, I stole all his clients, right? Like, we're going to completely disregard how many referrals I sent him. Just completely ignore that part, right? He's just focused on like, oh yeah, you took my stuff and sold it yourself. It's like, not factually wrong, right? At the same time, though, like, I don't see it as competition, right? We're all about cooperation. Because like there are people that are not going to be a good fit for me. Go over there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's kind of our hive mind mindset, is that there's too much of everything. So collectively, we can go further, faster, as opposed to like 100%. You versus us. It doesn't make sense, bro. I've never thought about it that way. Because in marketing, there's just too much of everything.
Yeah, like there's so many sales trainers out there. Like, I am the least of his concerns.
Yeah. Yeah. No, man, I think too, it speaks to your audience, man. You've given so much to the real estate community over the years. Like, I know that's your channel is the first one that I ever started watching when I first got into real estate, and really got me fired up and watch every single day, all day long. Stop listening to music, that kind of stuff. So if you have like products and services all these years later, after all the value you've provided, and somebody still feels like, oh, well, Steve's trying to sell stuff. I'm like, yeah, but look what he's giving away too, bro. You know what I mean? I don't know how you probably made way more millionaires than you know of already.
I suspect that's true. I would suspect that's true. I don't know if we created 100, but if I would say I would not be surprised if, something happens today. I go to the pearly gates and they're like, here's how many millionaires you created. It was over 100. Wouldn't be surprised, right? So
for sure, dude. I think maybe by the end of this year, I'll put all my books together and I'm going to send them to you. So I know for sure that I'm one of them.
Yeah. I look forward to it, man. So get you back on, get you in town, get you a plaque, all that fun stuff.
Sick, bro. Super appreciated, man. Yeah, everything you've done for us. I don't even know if you know the extent, and I'm sure there's probably hundreds of thousands of more people out there too that have gotten so much value from your channel, and now with your sales training, I'm sure that people are going to be able to crush it using that stuff, because if you don't have it at all, you're missing something huge.
Yeah, I mean, just we've trained hundreds of people, the best house buyers in the country, use our program. It's up to them what they want to do with that information.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
dope, man. Well, this was a fun one, Steve. Like always, man. It would be awesome to see you again soon. And anytime we can ever do anything for you, anything at all, bro. You have an event, anything, you call us, we'll be there.
All right, it's my pleasure, man. Appreciate you guys having me on. Great doing this again. Good meeting you, Kyle. And I'm glad we got to spend this time together.
All right, for everybody here, go like, share, subscribe. You know what to do. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks, guys.
Hey, if you have any deals you'd like to submit to the Hive Mind and our team, go to hivebc.io. It's actually the Hive Buyers Club. Submit your deals and we can hopefully dispel your deal for you. Have a great day.